Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. Company NMLS ID number 1464766. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the afternoon. Joining me today, as always, is Philadelphia's number one hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor. What's going on today, Chuck?
You know, just settling into the summer, I guess. It's funny. I was thinking about this yesterday about how, and like, I swear this is not intended to be another pitch to sign up to be a diehard, but like, I'm spending, and
But
this
do
is
sign up to be a diehard.
It's good for my sanity that I'm realizing that I'm spending significantly less time on Twitter because I no longer feel like I have to inject myself into every single Twitter debate because I get that fix on our Discord. Like, that's where I'm talking about the Flyers most of the time now. So, like, it's like Godspeed to Kevin Kurz because I saw he got into a big war with the especially angry section of Flyers Twitter about Konecny.
Today's show is about that. It's
aware.
where I got all of my material.
I'm fully
from
aware.
That argument.
I'm fully aware. But like, I missed it because I just don't like. I find that group pretty exhausting just because like they are and like I don't hate them, it's just that they are so certain that the only thing that will work is a tank. And it's like, look, I don't even disagree with you guys outright, it's just that they're not going to do it. And it's not like this way is certain to fail like you think. Like, it could work, so why don't we see if it could work rather than just be angry every day that they're not doing exactly what you want us to do. But like, Kevin is the one who's battling them and I'm like, I am so glad I have the Discord because I don't feel like I have to be involved in every single debate anymore on Twitter. It's a relief.
It's
honestly
something. And if you want to be if you want to participate in these conversations, which are generally more civilized, but sometimes they can deteriorate, join up to be a diehard at allphly.com. It's worth it. It's something we're going to talk about in a minute. Charlie's second half of his mock draft for diehards only. It published today. Good stuff there. Find out who the Flyers picked with the Florida pick from the Giroux trade. All that stuff. Second half of the first round up on the diehard only portion of the site. But Chuck, when we did a weekly show, I always kind of thought like, I don't know. I just talked for an hour. Everything I got to say, you can probably glean from there. Yeah. And then I started doing post games. It's like, I'm doing way too much. I can't possibly spend any more time debating this team. And now we have a show every single day. I just can't get involved in the conversation.
I think I
read them.
That's true too, is that because we're doing a daily show now, I feel like, okay, I've expressed all of my beliefs on this opinion. I don't need to relitigate it on Twitter, but I will talk about it on the Discord.
There is ample opportunity to find out what I think about these things.
Exactly.
But we're going to talk a lot.
And it's also significantly easier on an hour-long show to get into the nuance of a position, whereas on Twitter, it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah, I mean, remember I got in a debate one, and it was, talking about, okay, well, the league's all about speed, and then you introduce, let's stop them with Hatcher, Rathje, and Therrien. And, like, Therrien gets all mad at me. I was like, all right, let's replace the word speed with puck-moving skill. Maybe I used one word incorrectly. Yes, you could absolutely skate, 100%. I was wrong to use that term. What if I changed one word, though? And that's the nuance of Twitter. That's like, you know what I mean. But since it's written, the words that are written are what you say.
I think what I like about this medium, and even also Discord as well, because it is more free-flowing.
It's like a chat room.
You could type as much as you want. You're not limited by character limits, is the fact that, like, for example, we're going to get into this Konecny debate in a few minutes. And my view of the Konecny debate is, if I was the general manager of the Flyers, I would not re-sign Travis Konecny. I would trade him. However, I do not think it is completely and totally insane and unforgivable if they choose to re-sign Konecny. I think it is a risk. It's a risk that I personally would not take, but I don't think it is like the height of stupidity if they do it. And the thing is that on Twitter, if I make the case that that's re-signing Konecny isn't the dumbest thing in the world, then
you're carrying water.
People will lose their minds and think that I actually want them to sign Konecny, whereas in reality, I just don't think it is completely batshit. I wouldn't personally do it, but I think it is defensible. And then you just have to hope that he ages well. That's the risk. And we'll get into that in a few minutes.
I think what Charlie's trying to say is we could all probably benefit from maybe just taking a step back and chilling. Like sometimes you just need to choose chill, man, because this team, they drive us absolutely nuts. We've been doing this a long time, Charlie. It hasn't gotten any less ridiculous.
No, it just continues to get ridiculous.
It just seems to be getting more and more crazy. They get us fired up. That's why sometimes we need to step back and chill. And there's no better way to chill than with an ice cold Coors Light. So whether you're freaking out about potential contract extensions, cap space, the draft, whatever it might be, maybe just choose chill. And when you do that, there's no better way to do it than with the ice cold Coors Light. So find the Blue Mountains in your fridge and enjoy a beer as cold as the Rockies, because when everything surrounding your favorite hockey team is on fire, sometimes you just got to step back and chill. So make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
So before
that's way earlier than I normally do it, but it seemed to really fit.
It was a great
Good
transition.
job, Charlie.
Yeah, we're getting to become pros at this. It's taking us time. Before we get into the TK debate, though, I do want to talk about the second half of the mock draft that I did, because obviously draft coverage is going to be a big part of our show for the next month. We got a month to go to the draft. I am currently working on some individual prospect profile videos that will probably start coming out next week. So if you want to learn a little bit more about each prospect, I'm going to be doing a bunch of them, and they're going to come out over the course of June. But before I got into that, I wanted to do a full mock draft. So yesterday was the free-for-all in terms of reading. Lottery version of the draft, where I went
16 picks.
Went through the top 16. Today, I obviously included those 16 picks, but then went into 17 through 32. And that mock draft is only for diehards. But wanted to talk a little bit about it. Number one, because the Flyers do have a pick in the back half of the first round. Number two, because guess what? Cole Eiserman was taken. It's not like he slipped out of the first round, guys. It's not.
Flyers aren't getting him at 36.
They're not getting them in the second round. I had him going to the Washington Capitals at 17. The joke I made in the mock draft is you have the one-dimensional goal scorer can learn from maybe the best one-dimensional goal scorer of all time.
When I saw you mocked him to Washington, I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. And then you made reference to it. I was like, okay, good. He's thinking what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well, my thought process is that the Capitals are in a weird spot where they really should be rebuilding, but they know they can't fully do it. They can't fully do it until Ovechkin is gone, because Ovechkin is trying to break the goal record. Also, he is a franchise legend, one of the best players literally of all time, not just best Capitals, one of the best hockey players we have ever seen. And they are not going to let that team completely fall into oblivion while he's playing, especially when there's a very clear endpoint. It's not like Pittsburgh's in a weird spot because Crosby could play until he's 46. Like, who the hell knows?
Yeah, he might be Yager.
Yeah, it's possible.
But be this good.
Yes. Whereas with Ovechkin, he's kind of made it abundantly clear that, look, I got 2 more years left on the deal. After that's done, either I'm going to outright retire or I'm going to go back to Russia and play for my hometown team for a few years, and I'm done in the NHL. So the Capitals know, all right, we got 2 more years where we got to kind of carry Ov and thank him for everything he did for us by not having the team totally suck. So because of that, they can't draft at the top of the draft like they probably should be given their situation. If Cole Eiserman were to slip to 17 and they have the opportunity to get a blue chip guy that late, I would have to think they jump on it, right?
Yes. Like Cole Eiserman is, while maybe one-dimensional, one of those dudes that you go, yeah, but his one dimension might be special.
Exactly.
And if you can't get, if you get top 10 picks, good for you. They can't do that right now.
Right, exactly.
It's as much as you think the world is only about championships, you're either a contender or you should be doing whatever you can to build that contender. A dude who helped save the league and absolutely your franchise and is 41 goals away from 42 goals from breaking the all-time scoring record. You have to kind of be in this in-between area. If you get lucky, you get lucky. Like, listen, they made the playoffs this year. Maybe they make a couple of smart ads, get lucky again. Who knows?
Like, they're not winning any championship again. Everyone knows that. Their ceiling is plucky first-round exit.
Yes. But it's now about the next 42 goals Alex Ovechkin scores. Like, it's worth it for them.
Yeah.
They will continue to sell out every game,
Yeah.
so it makes sense.
Yeah.
So Cole Yzerman, maybe he doesn't get you closer to winning a champ. He's not a number one defenseman. He's not a number one center. But I think it makes sense for the spot they're in. Like, he could be a special player.
Exactly. And they need guys like that. I'm a big fan of Ryan Leonard, who they took right after the Flyers took Matvei Michkov. So I think they're drafting, like, that was a good draft. If they were to get somebody like Yzerman, I think that'd be big for them. They're still screwed right after Ovechkin retires, like, or leaves the NHL. They're in trouble for a while.
They have to start a rebuild late.
But if they already have a Cole Yzerman in their pipeline and a Ryan Leonard in their pipeline, it gives them something to build around for the 2 years when they're getting top 5 picks.
At least they have a starting point.
Exactly.
So we'll talk about that, Charlie. Before we get to the let's keep doing more mock drafts.
Yeah, let's talk about who I had going to the Flyers. So
if you want to give it away, feel free.
I'll give it away. So I had Cole Beaudoin going to the Flyers. He is a center. The interesting part about this, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about my theory. So in the mock draft, my explanation of Cole Beaudoin is a center. He's not the highest upside guy, but he is very much he gets the most out of his skill. It looks like he's going to stick at center. He's got size. He's physical. I think the playmaking ability is maybe underrated, but it's not flashy. What the Flyers did in the last draft when they had 2 first-round picks, which they also have again this time, is they went with the big swing with the first one with Matvei Michkov, the big superstar type. And then with the second one, they went with the guy who fills an organizational need with the high floor. Now, Oliver Bonk so far has developed really well, and maybe he has a higher ceiling than we originally thought, I guess is the better way to put it. But at the time, Bonk looked like that, locked to be a second pair defenseman, but probably isn't going to be much more than that type of guy. Beaudoin would kind of be that same thought process where it's not a huge swing. And I think, like, if everything were to work out, he could maybe be a really, really good second line center if he hits his ceiling. But he's not like Kiviharju, who was a top 5 potential pick before his stock slipped. And if he hits, maybe he could be a top pair defenseman in the vein of Adam Fox. Like, that would be, I think, my ideal type of pick where it's another big swing. But would you be okay if the Flyers, with their first pick in the first round this year, go big swing, and then again with the later first round pick, maybe swing for a double?
That's the obvious. I think we are in agreement on listen, man, especially doing the rebuild the way they're doing. Like, you have to take the big swings.
You do.
Some might pay off, some might not. But if you're not going to get consistent top 5 picks for a few years, take the guys with the highest upside. But with these later picks, I would like to kind of not waste them. Like, I don't want a Jay O'Brien situation.
Fair.
That's like, with these picks, get an NHL player. If this guy ends up being Scott Lawton, so be it. If he ends up being better, awesome. That's kind of the way I see it. And I do like his size. I do like the scoring numbers aren't bad.
Yeah,
it's close to a point a game. Not horrible.
And they're so weak down the middle right now. They have no one. I mean, they basically, I guess if you think Massimo Rizzo can be a center at the NHL level, then they're in better shape than I think, because I don't think he can be a center at the NHL level. But beyond him and the guys they already have in the NHL, they basically have like Owen McLaughlin and Cole Knuble, and that's pretty much it.
We don't know if those guys are close to NHL players.
like Owen McLaughlin was a 7th round pick. Cole Knuble was a guy who got passed over entirely in his first draft eligible year. Like, these are not guys that you necessarily can count on. You're hoping, but they're not the kind of prospects where other teams look at and they're like, man, I wish I had that guy. They're guys that, like, every team has an Owen McLaughlin and a Cole Knuble. The Flyers certainly could use a little bit more depth at the center position. And if they don't go and take a Berkeley Catton or a Consta Hellenius with that first pick, maybe they do look at it and say, this draft has a fair amount of guys, guys like Michael Hage, guys like Beaudoin, guys like Sacha Boisvert, who maybe could be gotten with that second first round pick. And they might not have first line center ceiling, but they might have middle 6 ceiling.
But in terms of the philosophy, I will say, if it is, say, Yakimchuk, the way, okay, we paired the defenseman and the center, and one of them's a big swing, and one of them's like, guess what? We think his floor is NHL.
Right.
I do I do like that philosophy. But if it is to be, say, Hellenius with the first pick, then maybe take a little bit of a swing.
Maybe you take a swing. Maybe you go with Kiwi Haru. You go with Cole Hudson, like Lane Hudson's brother. I think both those guys are probably going to slip to round 2 based on the scuttlebutt I've seen. But if either one of them was the pick in the late first, I'd be like, cool, you're taking a home run swing. Sure.
And that's like a lot like we talked about a minute ago. We can debate what we want, but at the end of the day, if we know what their philosophy is and what they're doing, like, it's kind of a waste of time to have that debate.
Well, but let's have that debate. Let's bring us to Travis Konecny.
But like that's like I think you kind of nailed their thinking with the mock draft. Like we just saw them do this.
Yes,
we just saw them go. All right. Well, Michkov, maybe it turns out to be less of a risk than we thought, but it was a risk.
Sure was,
especially after the whole Fedotov situation unfolded.
Yeah.
And then, all right, you know what, Bonk, we think you're going to be an NHL player. We're taking you now. Development seems to be going real well for Bonk. He might be a lot more than that, but that's the luck of the draft. That's what it is. But I think you may have nailed what their philosophy is in these situations based on one draft that we've seen from them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all we can do is predict based on what this front office has done, and that is what they did. Now, maybe that's not a model for how they're going to operate in the future, but it is how they operated in their first draft.
The only info we have.
It's the only info we have. So that's kind of my thought process. And hey, if they take Berkeley Catton with that first round pick, maybe then they go defenseman with that second. And it might be the same philosophy. They might go with like one of the Swedish defensemen who like that Salem Wallenius guy who like smooth skater, probably isn't a top pair guy, but could be a darn solid second pair guy. Maybe that's the swing they take, which is, again, more of a double swing than the home run swing that like Kivi Haru or Hudson would be.
You know, we're talking about taking these big swings, making these gambles, man. And if you're looking to gamble, maybe you want to do it at the Bet Parks Casino in Penn State.
These are expert transitions today.
I was like, you know what? Here's the time. No, listen, obviously it's one of the best casinos in Pennsylvania, but I got to tell you about some of the events coming up because they are absolutely stupendous. The Marshall Tucker Band coming in August and September. Australian Pink Floyd. That just sounds like a great time. On June 28th, the Jersey Shore podcast with Snooki and Joey coming to Parks Casino.
They're still around?
Yeah, they're still kicking. They're still kicking, man. And every Thursday, you have Joe Conklin's Comedy Night. If you've never seen Joe, I mean, come on, man. Give that a try. But October 25th, comedian Michael Blostein. All sorts of events coming to the Bet Parks Casino, and it is the #1 casino experience in the state of Pennsylvania. This is how you win. They have it all. It's my casino of choice. That's Parks Casino. Parks Casino has 3,200 state-of-the-art slots, 115 live table games, a beautiful poker room, all these events, so many restaurants. This would be a 5-minute read if I told you about all the restaurants and everything going on. So visit parkscasino.com. That's Parks Casino. This is how you win. Must be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Time for Travis Konecny.
It's TK time.
Now, the first question, I think we both believe the answer to be yes. Are they going to re-sign him?
I think so.
Do you think it's done? All right, let's say it's not July 1st because he's hopefully not slapping a cop's ass and getting arrested, but having fun on Canada Day. He's got a kid and everything now, so like it doesn't seem like he's that immature anymore.
Yeah, he's grown up a bit. Yeah, he's still going to be the prankster, but he has grown up a bit.
He's grown up. Sure. How old was Drew when that? I feel like he wasn't that young. You know what? Anyway.
He was probably like 24, 25, maybe, I'm guessing, the Canada Day incident.
On or around July 1st, we assume it'll probably get done pretty quickly, right?
I'm not expecting it to be done July 1st, but I think Kevin Kurz reported this, and it's more or less, it fits with what I've heard and also what I assume, the idea that like the Flyers would rather this not last into the season. I'm not expecting, unless like they just, when they talk in June, they immediately hammer out the deal and boom, they're done. I could see it lasting through the summer, but I think the Flyers want to re-sign Travis Konecny, and I think that they also would like this to be done like before camp. They don't want this to be a narrative. They want Konecny to be part of this, and they don't want it to be a talking point all season of, is Konecny going to walk in free agency? Are we going to trade him at the deadline? I think they want this signed, sealed, and delivered by September. So I'm not necessarily expecting July 1st, but yeah, if I had to bet, I would bet the Flyers do re-sign Travis Konecny.
And let's say before camp opens, main camp.
Yeah. If I was going to wager money, I would think it's probably done by the start of camp, yeah. Like, I don't mean, obviously he's still under contract, so we're not talking about a potential holdout.
Yeah, he's got a contract for a whole year.
Yeah.
We just think because on July 1st, like they were talking about this in January.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he can't sign till July 1st, but doesn't mean we can't talk.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I think it gets done probably before camp opens. That's that part of the debate. Are they going to do it? Signs point to yes. However,
should they?
When this started, January, February, the talk of like, yeah, man, we're going to get this done. We're going to get it done like pretty soon after we're allowed to.
Right.
It did seem as if they were a little colder. The whole I mean, you're negotiating. You can't just be like, well, we want him back. And he can't, I'm coming back no matter what. Like, that's not how either side's going to negotiate.
Exactly.
But,
especially not in this situation.
Yeah. But did it seem a little colder at exit interviews, or was that just us reading into it?
I mean, I don't think it was cold, but what I do think, what my takeaway from exit interviews from Konecny's perspective was Konecny was sending a little bit of a message to the Flyers that, like, look, I love Philly. I'll resign. It's not like I am, you know, it's not like this is a situation where Konecny hates John Tortorella so much that he doesn't want to sign, or like those sorts of rumors that were coming from like that dude who was probably like Cutter Gautier's golf buddy on Twitter, that Saul Goodman idiot. But like, but by the same token, I think Konecny was making a point that I'm not giving you a big discount. Like, I will stay. I am open to the idea. I love it here. I love my teammates, but also like you're going to have to pay me.
And listen, man, I once heard Jimmy Rollins look into a camera and say, I'm not going to take less.
Yeah.
You know, like these guys are here to make as much money as they can while they can. Their careers end at like 35. They need to cash in.
Yeah.
Well TKs will probably go further than that because this contract's going to take him beyond 35.
Yeah, he's probably going to get an eight-year contract. Yeah. But this leads into the report from Anthony DeMarco this week, basically. And again, none of this is surprising. I really hope that no one is taking what's in this report to be a shock, because basically what Anthony DeMarco reported is that Konecny's initial ask is in the 10 mil range. And the Flyers' initial thing is like, we think you're around 8. This is how negotiations work.
That's what I asked for from Vince, the first phone call we had.
$10 million?
$10 million.
I mean, hey, shoot for the moon, man.
Yeah. I didn't get it, but close.
You didn't?
No.
I mean, if you got it, I'd be like, holy shit, I really approached negotiations
myself
way wrong here.
No, but so it's his initial ask, 10.
Yeah,
we're hearing
makes sense.
Yeah,
of course, Travis Konecny is not a $10 million a year player. I think if you hooked his agent to a lie detector, his agent would agree with that. But you always shoot high.
Why wouldn't you? What if it's just Chuck Fletcher and he goes, "You want to no trade?" You know, like you find out how good of a negotiator this guy is. Ask for 10.
Yeah.
It sounds like the Flyers are more comfortable in the Giroux Voracek range, the 8 to 8.5 range.
Right.
Should they do it? That's the question now. Like, it sounds as if this thing's going to work itself out, and I think Kevin Kerr's put out the Timo Meier contract is the closest possible comparable.
Which fits.
He's around an $8.8 million.
He's just before the $9 million.
Yeah.
And maybe it goes up a little bit because the cap is going up. You know, this is going to kick in.
When you look at cap percentage when they sign, it's the same, but it's more money in real dollars.
Yeah, so, you know, the Timo Meier contract that kicks in 2025, that equivalent might be a little over 9 mil. Like, that's where I would guess this probably ultimately falls, because Konecny will give a little bit. The Flyers will give a little bit. They'll do some structuring with signing bonuses because Comcast has all the money. So it's like, well, you'll get a lot more of your money up front. So maybe you'll cave a little bit on cap hit to help the team. That's how these negotiations work. Like, I think that's the range this is going to get done at. The question is whether they should do it. We think they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Now, whether they should do it is another question entirely.
We absolutely think they are going to do it. I guess that leads to my first question. Right now, Travis Konecny is unquestionably, in my mind, this team's best player. Led the team in scoring with 33 goals, 68 points. Closest guy to him was Owen Tippett at 28-53.
Yeah.
Pretty good gap there.
Yeah.
He is this team's best player at this moment. Should you pay him that way when the hope is 3 years from now he's not close to that?
I think the best defense of signing Konecny is centered around the idea that the cap hit he's going to get will not look as daunting as the cap continues to go up. And while we may look at high eights, low nines as this insanely high number, once the cap is 95 mil, it's not going to look as crazy. And that's when Mitchkov will hopefully be usurping Konecny as the team's no questions asked best player. And when Mitchkov does that, if the Flyers don't have Konecny, they are going to then go out in free agency or trades and either sign or trade for someone who has that contract anyway, because that's how you're going to get a guy of Travis Konecny's caliber. Is you're either going to have to pay him that much, or you're going to have to trade, do what essentially Vegas just did with Timo Meier. They wanted a guy of that talent, so they traded for Timo Meier. Like, that's how this happens. So the thought process would be, if you're going to have to go out and do that anyway, why not keep the guy who you know fits, who you know is good in your system, who you know loves it here, and isn't going to show up and be a complete bust immediately because it turns out he hates Philadelphia and thinks the fans are lunatics and whatnot. He already knows exactly what to expect and loves it anyway, or loves it because of that. So keep that guy. That's the reason, that's the justification for keeping Konecny. However, I understand your argument, which is basically like, is he actually worth this contract?
Is he worth this contract? And is he going to be worth it? This thing kicks in 6 months before he turns 29, 5 months before he turns 29.
Yeah, it's about half. He'll be about 28 and a half. Yeah, because he's a March birthday, right?
March 11th. Happy 3/11 day.
Hurdle. Good call. Sorry, K-Red. You're right.
I was thinking that's what you meant, and I wasn't 100%.
Meier was the Devils.
But so my question, okay, it's a guy with the same contract, but what if he's 3 years younger? We'll have to go find another TK. Is it really that hard to find another TK when you just look at 26 players scored more goals than Travis Konecny, 58 guys put up more points than TK? We talked yesterday, and you just brought up, we have to kind of recalibrate. As the cap goes up, we have to recalibrate what money means in terms of evaluating it versus a player's worth.
Absolutely.
We also have to recalibrate what scoring numbers mean. Because in the last few years, and I think this is a direct result of expansion, it's why I'm all for expansion. There's more players, probably not as many who are as good. Guys get to take advantage of 25 extra guys who might not shouldn't be in the league, whatever. All of a sudden, we have dudes putting up this isn't Jamie Benn winning the Art Ross with under 90 points anymore.
Yeah, it's a different league.
You got dudes, 2 guys put up 100 assists this year, and neither of them are going to win MVP. Yeah. We got guys putting up 140 points. It's a little different than it was a couple of years ago when you see the 65, 68 points. That's not what it meant even a few years ago. Is it really that hard to find a TK that you have to lock a dude up into his mid-30s at a decently high cap hit in order to obtain one of these dudes?
So here's why I don't fully buy that argument, because I do think for 2 reasons you're selling TK a little bit short. Number one, to present him as like a 60, 65 point a year guy, I don't think is quite fair because, and we'll get to this argument because this is another argument, I guess, against the idea of re-signing Konecny. But over the last 2 years, which is basically when Konecny appears to have hit his stride. This is who he is. This is Konecny at prime peak level Travis Konecny. For the past 2 seasons, his 82 game pace. So just looking at what he scored and then extrapolating that over an 82 game time frame, 38.5 goals, 77.8 points. He's not quite a point per game guy. He's not quite a 40 goal guy. But if you assume he's going to play 82 games, that's about what he has produced from a pace standpoint. That is significantly better than 30-65. Now, he hit those numbers in part because he got hurt. He missed some time this year. He missed some time last year. But if you're looking at pace, like, yeah, I think a 38 goal, 80 point guy, which is more what he is from a pace standpoint, I think that guy is really good. And I think that guy is really tough to find. Those guys usually don't hit the free agent market or become available via trade. So that's point number one. Point number two, which I think is the bigger one, and this is probably the thing that most convinces me that I would be like relatively okay with them re-signing Konecny. I think Konechny's scoring numbers are deflated right now because I think if he was on a team with a remotely passable power play and on a team where he was not the best player, but he was the third or fourth best forward on the team, which is where I think he should be on a contender, I think he scores more. Because I think he has more help. I don't think he is asked to do everything. He probably picks up a lot more cheap secondary assists. He probably gets a few more goals on a power play where he's not the guy. He's the second or third guy, but he's still on the top unit. He's still going to get a ton of shorthanded time because he's obviously one of the best shorthanded threats in the league. So I think his ice time is still going to be high up on another team. But I think his point totals go up. Like, I think true talent level, Travis Konecny is probably a 40-goal point-per-game player in an 82-game season. Now, can he play an 82-game season every year? That's a legitimate question. But if we're talking about true talent level, I think he is a 40-goal pace, point-per-game guy, and I think those guys are legitimately very tough to find because I think that, number one, his raw numbers don't look as good because he's missed some time. It's like the whole Sean Couturier has never scored 40 points. Like, well, yeah, because 2 of those years he played like 60 games. Like, just because he ended up at 38 points doesn't mean he's not a plus 40-point talent. Just means that he missed some games. I think it's a similar thing here. I also think that if he had more help, and by the way, help might be on the way as soon as this October with Michkov, I think his point totals go up significantly because he has another player he can play off of with high-end talent.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying here, but 2 points. One, he has missed time in every season except at ages 20 and 21, he missed a total of 1 game. So we're going to say he played 2 full seasons there.
Right.
He has missed time in every season, whether it's a couple of games or a bunch of games, like it was 2 years ago when he missed 22.
Right.
He has missed time in every year. And most guys tend to decline as they hit 29, 30,
Yes.
30. So you're paying him for what he's doing right now and hoping someone else props up his scoring as he continues to age. Right now, I see Travis Konecny as the best player on this team, and he's a very good player. Does he make his teammates better? Because that's what I pay a guy $9 million to do. Not be Zach Hyman, and I'm not going to say all he does is, score Mike Knuble goals. He does far more than that. I'm just saying I'm not paying a guy $9 million to be the second best player on his own line.
I don't know if I agree with that because, again, this goes back to the point about recalibrating what $9 million a year is going to mean when the cap goes up. Like, to me, in 2025, when this contract will theoretically kick in, I think those superstar line driver types you're talking about are probably worth about 12 mil.
Probably. But that's I need to. Yeah, if your number one center is Nathan McKinnon and he's dishing it to Mikko Rantanen, like Mikko Rantanen will never be the best player on his own line as long as he's playing with Nathan McKinnon, but he could also one day win a Rocket Richard. So, maybe I'd pay him the same as I just don't see TK as that kind of guy.
And
I see him as an awesome second line player. And when I look at the allocation of resources here, Matvei Michkov, hopefully, after he's on this team for 3 years, signs an 8-year, $80 million deal, or 90, whatever the fuck. The more the better, because it means he's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Your 1 and 2 right wings are now accounting for like $20 million.
It's a reasonable point. I mean, TK can play the left, but
you don't have a 1C yet. You're going to have to buy one, or you're going to have to really hope you luck into one in the draft.
Right.
You don't have a 1D yet. Maybe they draft Yakimchuk and he turns into that. Maybe Jamie Drysdale defies what my belief in his ceiling is and becomes that. But as of right now, you don't have a number one defenseman.
That's true.
I just don't know if this is how I want to allocate my resources to a dude who's going to be in his 30s for the most of this contract. He's going to be 32 plus.
Yeah, I think where I come in is I think higher of Konecny, the player, than you do. Like, I think he is better than you are presenting him to be. I view him, true talent, as, like, right now, he's in my mind, 40-goal, point-per-game guy, and to me, that is a clear-cut first liner on any team. Now, maybe on a great team, he's on your second line because you have 3 superstars, and then he is the first liner on your second line, because as I've always said, the thing with cup contenders is that they're cup contenders because they have first liners on their second liners on their third line, and everything down the road. So maybe he's a second liner on a truly great team, but I think he is absolutely true talent level a first line caliber player. I cannot be swayed on that. You have every right to disagree. That's just my point. But on the other side, the reason why I am still, despite thinking very high of Konecny, and despite viewing him as a first line caliber player, the reason why I am skeptical about re-signing him is because of the age, the timeline, the risk involved with the fact that he plays the style he plays with a not that big body. I'm worried about how his body is going to age, given the way he plays the chippy style, the fact that he is tenacious and physical. I'm worried how that's going to age into his 30s. Those are my big concerns. So I'm less worried about Konecny, the player. I'm more worried about Konecny, the concept, as would I be willing, given where the Flyers are, the fact that they ain't that good right now, and they probably ain't going to be that good for at least another couple more years. Are the Flyers, like, I think Travis Konecny is deserving of an 8-year, $9 million a year contract, without a doubt. I am unconvinced the Flyers should be the team that gives it to him.
Yeah, I see him as a first-line caliber player. I just think you need 2 guys better than him on that first line.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there.
And at that point, I just don't know. Like, that's not the kind of guy I want to make a long-term commitment to.
Fair.
Like, I look at what this team has. Like, you have Tyson Forster, you have Owen Tippett, you have Matvei Michkov coming. Man, the dude who's going to be 32 plus for the majority of this contract, like, his decline is going to be the majority of this contract.
Yeah.
And maybe they have enough players that prop him up. But I just think there's a better allocation of resources than with Travis Konecny.
Well, the other part of this too, and this is something that's important, is it's hard for me. And like, as we both talked about at the beginning of the show, we both think they're going to re-sign Travis Konecny. Yeah. But in a world where they don't, this isn't a question of like re-sign Travis Konecny or let him leave for nothing. I don't think there's any universe where that happens. I think that if the Flyers were to determine that Travis Konecny is only going to take $10 million and that's just too rich for our blood, in that scenario, they trade him. And they would trade him for some type of future-centric assets. Now, whether that's draft picks, whether that's a player younger than Konecny who maybe fits the timeline better. So really, this isn't a question of Konecny versus nothing. This is Konecny versus what would you get back
potential
for Konecny in a trade, which is another reason why I'm more on the side of not bringing back Konecny, because signing a 28-year-old to an 8-year contract, given the way he plays, given the fact that the first 2-3 years of that deal, when you're theoretically getting the surplus value, I don't think the Flyers will be a cup contender. I just don't love it. I personally think the shrewder move would be to turn him into assets that might better fit the timeline. Now, obviously, I wouldn't want them to give him up for jack shit. I'd want them to get a good package back. But I think that is more likely to fit the timeline. Now, there is a world, and this is why, like, I am not vehemently opposed. I'm like, oh my God, if they sign Travis Konecny, it's the dumbest thing in the world. There's a world where this works, where maybe Michkov gets here and the Flyers immediately are real good. And then it's like, well, shit, we fucking traded away Travis Konecny. We're going to need to go out and get another Travis Konecny because we got rid of our version of Travis Konecny. There's also a world where Konecny ages real well. I mean, Brad Marchand, that happened.
And he is
35 years old
direct-
and still a clear-cut first-line player, and he maybe is the most obvious comparable to Travis Konecny.
He's been the direct comparison for as long as we've been doing this show, and Travis Konecny's been part of the organization. So it is possible.
Yeah, there's a world where it works out very well for the
While
Flyers.
I'm making the argument, like, I don't think Konecny in his current situation is worth the money, I'm not going to come here and be like, well, fire Briere. Like, I don't think it's the brightest thing. I don't think it's a great move, but I don't think it sinks them automatically. I think it, once again, like we talked about with Sean Couturier, like it just might make the needle a little tougher to thread.
Yeah.
Like it might narrow things a little here, but I don't think it automatically sinks them. But I want more optionality, like than what giving another dude a long-term contract gives you.
It's fair. It's fair. And I think that is a completely reasonable like stance to hold. I don't and I am of the opinion personally that I would trade Travis Konecny because to me the risk is too high. The risk of re-signing him is too high. But I am not going to dismiss the fact that there is reward here in that Travis Konecny, he works here. He works well in Philly. He works well with his coaching staff. He works well in this city. And while aging curves are real, they are not a guarantee of future outcomes. Travis Konecny could age extremely well. In all honesty, if you just look at a pure aging curve, Travis Konecny should not have hit his prime at age 25, 26. He should have hit his prime at age 23, 24.
When he had his worst seasons.
Yeah, when he completely dipped. Yeah. Like he is not currently following the normal age, the typical aging curve. Maybe that will continue, and it's certainly possible. But you go back to, and this is what I'm talking about risk profile. I am on record as being in favor of the Sean Couturier extension when it happened. I thought that Couturier actually did give the Flyers a bit of a discount. And my thought process was, I thought Couturier was a good guy to take the risk on. And who was the guy that you heard all the time when anyone would make the point of, well, he might not age well? It was, well, look at Patrice Bergeron. Look how well he aged. What happened? Before the contract even kicked in, Sean Couturier had 2 back surgeries, or 1 back surgery, I guess, before the contract kicked in.
Very Ryan Howard-esque.
I'm not saying that's going to happen again with Konecny, but the fact of the matter is that guys that are in their late 20s and early 30s have a higher injury risk profile. They just do. And with Couturier, the argument was, well, he might be Bergeron. With Konecny, the argument is, well, he might be Marchand. Well, we saw what happened with Couturier. Maybe Bergeron and Marchand are just freaks of nature that should not be viewed as what everyone is going to invariably become.
Also, both those guys had cups at this age. I'm just saying. Wrong. Well, cup. Yeah, it was the same one. Before we go any further, let me tell you about one of my favorite sponsors here at PHLY, our friends over at Shady Rays. You got to get ready for the season, man. It's here.
Sure do.
If you don't have your glasses yet for the season, you got to get them at Shady Rays, where they give you quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades of durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. I've told you, I just went on shadyrays.com, got myself a couple of pairs. I actually wore them to the studio today.
I saw them.
Meant to bring them in. Forgot, but take my word for it. I wore them in a read a couple of weeks ago, and it was great. And Shady Rays, they're built for active lifestyles, for whatever your needs are. And if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, you don't have to sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. And if you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. And exclusively for our listeners right now, man, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Told you I got myself 2 pairs. It's because I had this 35% off code. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 30,000 people. All right, and that gets us to the idea that TK. I'm trying to recollect my thoughts now.
I mean, you're real excited about those Shady Rays.
I just love them so
They're
much.
really good.
Yeah, they have cast a shade over my brain now,
Exactly.
and I cannot think of anything else. No, like TK, he very well could age just fine. We have seen it with guys. I'm not. Do you think maybe we're a little less confident in it because we've been bitten by so many of these things?
Yeah, I do. But I also think that probably in the past we were a little too confident that things were always going to, that, you know, every single one of the guys you choose, your team chooses to sign in their late 20s to an 8-year deal. Like, well, they're obviously going to be the outlier. There's a reason why they're called outliers. Like, Claude Giroux was an outlier. Claude Giroux, I mean, in my mind, Claude Giroux is a Hall of Fame caliber player, which probably plays into why he's been able to age as well as he has. Yeah. On the other hand, Jake Voracek wasn't. Jake Voracek was not an outlier. Jake Voracek aged into his early 30s the way that most players do, in that his all-around play fell off significantly. And Jake Voracek, I think, in his prime, was a better player than Travis Konecny is now.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think the aging curve might be becoming, and we're seeing guys defy it, but again, we're talking about Sidney Crosby, like maybe belongs on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Brad Marchand, awesome. Just absolutely freaking like Hall of Fame, awesome. Claude Giroux, again, sure. But the game is so fast now that if you lose half a step, you might just be done.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Travis Konecny at 32 is going to be out of the league.
No.
But man, you go from first-line caliber player to third real fast.
Could be a 50-point guy, which, like, not bad. Still want him on your team, but you don't want him with a $9 million cap.
You don't want to be paying him $9 million. Yeah. And that gets me to just the overall cap situation that this team is in. Now, these are different. You can't compare because, like, guys like Sean Couturier and Wayne Simmons, when Paul Holmgren re-upped them, I think he was buying RFA years. They were very young.
He was.
But
they were both very good contracts.
When you talk about surplus value, you got both of those guys combined for like $8 million against the cap.
Yeah.
I look at the Flyers' current cap situation with, when Sean Couturier, the day he signed that contract, I thought, wow, I expected 8.5 or 9. So 7.75, that's good stuff for a dude who, number one, Selke contending sort of guy. But now, with 6 years,
now it doesn't look great.
Now, with 6 years left at 7.75, that's a tough one to swallow.
Yeah.
Owen Tippett at $6.2 million for 8 more seasons.
That
now,
could be.
Absolutely. That thing could end up being, excellent. Way to go, Bren. Like, that thing could end up going real well for you. If he has the breakout season we were expecting this year, next season, suddenly 6.2, when you're like, oh, he's worth 8, that would be sick.
Yeah.
But now,
he's not there yet.
Right now, it's like fair value, I would say.
Right. I would agree.
30-ish, like 28 goals, 60 points. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Farabee, $5 million for 4 more seasons.
Also could be a good contract.
Could be.
But isn't yet.
Right
now, it's about fair value.
Travis Sanheim, $6.25 for 7 more seasons. Travis Sanheim had an excellent year. I liked what I saw out of him. That's probably fair value, though.
Yeah, probably.
Like second pair defenseman
and it could get ugly at the end.
And it absolutely could. He's not I'm not young when he's 10 years younger than me. He's not young in terms of the conversation we're having right now. Exactly. Not old yet, but he's getting there. Sealer, 2.7 for 4 more seasons. I think you can live with it. It's fine.
It's probably a year too long, but I actually think that's a decent value contract. I just don't know if the Flyers were the team that maybe should have given it to him. But I mean, this is a guy who, and I put this in our, I put this in our outline by Dom's model on The Athletic. He delivered about $6.8 million worth of value last year. Even if he regresses from there, he's got a pretty far way to go before that's a bad contract.
I have trouble believing he's a $7 million player.
The underlying numbers were fantastic.
I tried to prove,
in a top 4 role.
I tried to prove your nonsense wrong by looking at his numbers post Walker trade. And granted, he was hurt for a lot, but he played like 8 or 12 games, and he had like a 60% expected goals.
I think he's just a good defenseman.
He might just be. Listen, 2.7 might be sticker shock because we've watched Nick Sealer the entirety.
Yeah.
And if who he was last year is who he is, it's probably good value.
But also, like, the Flyers aren't winning a Stanley Cup because they have Nick Sealer on a good contract.
No. And then Ristolainen 5.1. We all know that's
that's
absolutely
terrible
freaking
contract. Yeah, it's
ridiculous.
awful.
And then
But it was offered from the day he signed it.
You look at you look at what they need: Cam York, Cates, Frost, all eligible for extensions. Now, granted, they're restricted free agents, but all eligible for extensions July 1st, same as Travis Konecny. These guys, at least Cam York, hopefully Cates, maybe Frost, are part of your future and in their prime.
Yeah.
Not the age that Travis Konecny is now. And like I said, Michkov, hopefully 3 years after he joins the team, he signs an 8-year, $80 million deal. Like, that's the hope, that he's that freaking good. You have to lock him up immediately.
Yeah.
Fuck a bridge. He gets his long-term deal right now while he's in his prime.
Yeah, the same way that the Toronto guys they didn't get full term, but they got the big money right away.
They don't have pretty much any of the high-end talent they need at this very moment.
I mean, Konecny is the only guy who I would consider to be not superstar level, but I would consider Konecny to be high-end talent. I think he is in that like not quite a star, but definitely like can be top of the lineup on any team in the NHL type of guy. He's probably the only guy they have.
Probably. And despite not having any of those guys yet, maybe Konecny, before LTIR use, they're capped out. At what point do we have surplus value on this team? I just don't see it, and you absolutely need that stuff. I look at Florida, I look at Tampa, I look at a bunch of these teams, and granted, yes, they're in like tax situations where half their games they don't have the state income tax, blah blah blah. We know that shit, but you need the surplus value somewhere, and I just don't see where they're getting it yet. And I haven't seen an example outside of maybe Sam Ersson, who, and again, like that's before he was even an NHL player. Danny Briere has won a negotiation the way I pointed out, like the Simmons and Couturier, contracts by Paul Holmgren.
Well, I think the jury is still out on Owen Tippett because the thing is, like, going back to Simmons and Couturier, like, I would not say, because you say, like, did he win the negotiation? I would not say that at the time of signing that those were fair deals. The way that Holmgren won those negotiations is that he bet on both those guys improving significantly, and then soon after signing the contracts, they both did. Now, that's the same bet that Briere is taking on Tippett. He just hasn't yet improved. Now, maybe he won't. Like, Chuck Fletcher made that bet with Joel Farabee. Thus far, Joel Farabee has not yet, I guess, proven out the trust that Chuck Fletcher had when he offered him that deal. But Chuck Fletcher's thought process was, I think Joel Farabee has the potential to be an $8 million a year guy. Let me sign him to this deal now, and let's get the surplus value. Let's take that risk. So far, Farabee looks basically like a $5 million a year guy. Maybe he takes that further leap. Maybe Tippett takes that further leap. But, like, it's not like those Couturier Simmons contracts were signed, and in the minute they were signed, you're like, oh man, that's a steal. It was, that could be a steal if they keep improving to the degree we think they're going to. I think the Flyers will have other opportunities to sign deals like that. Like Cam York's an example of a guy where maybe his next contract, you can get him before maybe the offensive breakout happens, and you get him to a reasonable contract, and then he turns into a $9 million a year defenseman, and then boom, you've got him at 6.75 or something like that. You've got the guys like Michkov, the guys like Bonk. Those guys could also potentially be big savings guys depending upon where they're at after their entry-level contract. So I do think there will be opportunities for them to get surplus value contracts, but I see your point. I do see your point that looking at the contracts they have now, there isn't anybody you point to aside from, I would say, Tippett and maybe Farabee, where you're like, in 2 years, that contract could look great.
Yeah, I think those are fair value contracts. I'm not saying they're stealing money.
And I guess what I'm saying is that when Couturier signed that contract, that was a fair value contract too. It's just that then he became a Selke guy, and it became an amazing contract.
I think the Simmons one was a bit more of a lock, and the Couturier one was projection.
Right.
And like the Couturier one, like his huge seasons, he's still under that deal.
Yeah.
But it was, even if he's just our 2C, like, we're not paying him anything. Like,
exactly.
Even before the breakout, there was surplus value. Yeah. And then it just became one of the best contracts in hockey.
Yeah.
And Wayne Simmons, like, his first year in Philly, he scored 28 goals.
Yeah.
That's Owen Tippett's career high.
That's true.
Now, granted, it was 10 years ago, so the money's, but I'm just saying, where is this value going to come from?
And you're right. To win cups, you need surplus value.
And
the whole point I made earlier in the show, the idea of like the way you win cups is you have first liners on your second line. You know how those teams can do that? Because they have a ton of surplus value. Like the reason why the Stars are so loaded is because like Robertson isn't getting paid a ton. Hintz is getting paid good money, but not great money. Like Heiskanen isn't making $12 million, even though he probably is a $12 million a year player. They've got Stankoven and Johnson on entry-level deals. That's how they're able to be so deep, because there's surplus value freaking everywhere. The Flyers, you do not look at and say there's surplus value everywhere.
And the thing we thought we were going to have, Michkov in his prime on an ELC, might not be the case. If he comes over at 19-20 rather than 22-23, well, guess what? He's going to be making what he's worth in his prime rather than, oh man, like our number one right wing, best player on the team is making $975. We can just go make a dumb signing.
Yeah.
Like we can go give money to a free agent we shouldn't because we can.
It's a fair
because
point.
we have this thing.
It's a fair point.
And now we're not going to have that. That's the one piece of surplus value I thought they were going to have. That, listen, I'd rather have Michkov early because that means he's here.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'd rather have him than not. I'm just saying that one competitive advantage I thought we were going to have suddenly might not be the case. And now it gets me back to what Travis Konecny is ultimately going to get. We know their value. We know how they value culture, locker room. Listen, he's a leader. He's homegrown. He scores at a decent rate, maybe not an all-star level, but a pretty damn decent rate. When you factor in the intangibles, does that not then raise his cap hit? And like, how much are you willing to give him for that?
Well, because I'm sure the Konecny team will argue that
right
raises
now,
his cap hit. Yeah.
Right now, like the Dom model has him at 8.5. He's going to get 9+ because of this other stuff too. Like suddenly now it's just becoming less attractive to me. Because you know they value these things.
Yes, the
and
Flyers
they want to
do.
get it done.
And all teams do, for that matter.
Sure.
You know, if Konecny were to hit the open market as a free agent, there would be a team that would give him the money for those intangibles, because all NHL teams love the fact that he's a pain in the ass, the fact that he's a good dude in the room. Like, they all love that kind of shit. Should the Flyers be giving him an extra $1 million for it? Probably not. But again, then it just comes down to whether you want him or you don't.
And that's because we know they want him. What if it gets to 9.5? Then it's like, gee, really?
That's a lot.
Like, this is what we're doing here because we can't lose him. We do not want. And again, you have a whole year to trade him. Like
it would make it tougher to build a really good team. I'm not saying it would make it impossible. And there are worlds where you sign Travis Konecny to a $9.5 million AAV deal over 8 years, and he ages like Brad Marchand, and he is a Flyers lifer who is one of the first guys to lift the cup in 6 years. Like that there are universes where that happens. But for me, the risk is too high for me to commit that much money and that many years, given where the Flyers stand. That's where I'm at. I don't think that's where the Flyers are at.
I really appreciate you being able to make their argument while, like, we needed to be able to do this to debate today.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you being able to do that. I just, man, again, like, I'm not gonna freak out. I mean, I might.
Oh yeah, I mean,
but like,
you can freak out for like a day or two.
Like I'm gonna be on Twitter, like, really, what the fuck?
Yeah,
I'm not gonna like be picketing out front in Voorhees because they did the raw, like they signed a good player to a good contract.
Yeah, like this isn't Risto where you're signing a bad player to a contract.
Yeah, like the minute they did that, I was like, Chuck Fletcher needs to be removed from office. He's not like, he doesn't have it in him to do this job. He's bad at it. Like, I am not gonna think Briere's bad at his job if they give Travis Konecny a fair value contract. That's not where we are. I am going to question, though, like, when does he win a negotiation? At what point do we go, oh, Danny, you made this one happen? And again, I see other teams, and they are in other situations. When we point to teams in Florida, in Texas, in Nevada, that's not Philly. It's different for cost of living, everything. But, like, you got to make it work somehow, and I don't know that he has yet. Not saying he won't.
Just hasn't yet.
He might get him for 8.5, and then we go, all right. Yeah,
sure.
I'll live with that. Fine. Like, we're paying him what we paid Claude Giroux 10 years ago. Okay, that works for me. But I am concerned about where this team is roster construction-wise and cap-wise if you do this, because they don't have the things they need yet. Like, if we had that shit, If we had our 1C, if we had our 1D, and I knew at least some cost certainty in the near future, like, yeah, do it.
Well, like, then that goes back.
Since it might take so long, like, this contract might be the thing that prevents us from getting those things.
It's like why I didn't hate because if you're going to go to this comparison, because Kevin Kerr's used it, like, I thought it made perfect sense for the Devils to give Timo Meier that deal.
Yeah.
Because you know what?
They have everything.
You got Jack Hughes, you got your young defenseman, you've got Nico Hischier, like, you've got your core. Sure. You know what? You can afford to give a first-line caliber winger who is not a star nearly $9 million on a long-term deal. You can do that. I don't know if the Flyers are in, right? It's not even that I don't know. I don't think the Flyers are in that same position. And I know the Devils stunk last year, but they have a lot more going for them than the Flyers do right now.
If they figure a way out of, let's say, Risto and Couturier, does that change your stance?
Not really. I mean, because I think they are ultimately going to find a way out of the Risto deal. Couturier, I don't know. I don't know if they can.
And then it's even like, well, how much cap retention? Like,
yeah, do they have, $3 million a year of Couturier's contract on the books through the end of the decade?
Yeah, and that's a buyout. I don't know. I haven't looked up what his bonus structure is, but like, that might be a whole thing too. There's a lot of moving pieces here, and even if, say, they get this done on July 1st, we still won't know probably, like, all right, what does this mean for Coots? What does this mean for the rest? There's lots of things that could happen. So that could change my overall belief in their situation. But as of right now, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to sign him for that kind of term and that kind of cash.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say it doesn't make sense to me, because I do understand where it makes sense to them. It's just not something, if I were the GM, I would do.
All right, before we get out of here, let's get to the mailbag question of the day, because it is related to this. It's from listener at Voxinski on Twitter.
Okay.
And he says, or she, I'm not sure, for the next mailbag or whatever, which I appreciate the nonchalance. It's not the politeness of yesterday's question, but I'm all for nonchalance.
Love that.
For the next mailbag or whatever, given the rumors of the Konecny money ask, would it be more or less beneficial for the Flyers to wait and see what Sam Reinhart resigns for in Florida before taking a swing at a TK extension, assuming that's the goal?
That's just risky, because he might get a lot.
That's it's not, again, like, it's a totally different sport, totally different salary structure, everything. But I look at the way Howie Roseman does things. And you know what he doesn't do? Wait. Because the price never goes down.
Well, but also the thing with this question too is that they're going to have to wait, because, like, Reinhart is going to either get signed before July 1st, or he's going to get signed probably on July 1st, because he will be the big ticket free agent, the guy everyone is chasing. The earliest the Flyers can sign Travis Konecny to a deal is July 1st. So I guess the only thing is, like, if you have a handshake agreement with TK on June 15th and you just have to wait 2 weeks to announce it. But naturally, the Flyers will probably sign TK after the Reinhart situation is resolved. And yeah, that will be another comp. Now, I think Reinhart is a significantly better player than Travis Konecny, but the comps are still there because it might drag up the comparables, where it's like, well, if Reinhardt's an $11 million a year player, like, yeah, TK might not be 8, but he might be 9.5.
And that's the risk.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm looking forward to seeing what numbers are on UFAs and extensions on July 1st.
With the cap
just
going
to
up.
see how teams are compensating for the rise in the cap.
Yeah.
Like, just to see what the numbers really are in this new world.
Yeah, like
for the first time.
Yeah, like, it'll be a sticker shock if Sean Walker on July 1st gets $6 million a year. Like, oh, shit, we really are in a new world.
Well, no, then it's like, you know what? I don't hate this Sanheim contract that much.
Yeah.
I don't love it still, but clearly to go out and get a good second pair defenseman is going to cost you a shit ton of money. So, all right, I can live with it.
Right.
But we will see. All right. So that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Before we get out of here, there's just a couple of things I want to talk to you about. And Charlie, I actually got a DM about our golf tournament on July 13th.
Love it.
We have a ringer trying to join our team.
Okay.
So I told him to hit you up because I'm actually going to be at a wedding that day. But
I will definitely be there.
If you want to go check it out, I know Charlie is committed to going, and he is a horrible golfer.
So bad.
He claims. I think he's slow rolling us.
I think I've golfed probably in my life about 6 times, like actually golfed, not just like went to the driving range or went to Top Golf. And there's usually at least a year in between each golfing excursion. So I have no ability to build on anything I learned.
I have only ever been to the driving range.
Yeah, so like by hole 16, I might be like not embarrassingly bad. But the thing is, then I don't play for another year and I forget everything I relearned.
But on Saturday, July 13th at the Valley Brook Country Club in Blackwood, New Jersey, brought to you by our friends at Shady Rays in partnership with the All-City Show, Big Drive Energy. Good golf show over there. There's early bird pricing. It's a shotgun start at 2 o'clock, scramble format. There's going to be prizes, all sorts of stuff. Free beer for 2 hours after your round ends. This is going to be a great, great time. I hope everyone comes out. It's the inaugural. Oh, look at that on the... It says the inaugural PHLY Liberty Open and not the first annual. I'm very happy that we got the inaugural onto the logo.
Love it.
Someone's paying attention. All right, but come out to that on July 13th and come out to Gall & Co. For the London series. If you're not going to London, hang out with the PHLY Phillies crew for live watch parties on June 8th and June 9th for the Phillies and Mets series out in London. All right, that is all the time we have for you today here on PHLY Flyers. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. Follow us right here on YouTube. Set those reminders. Never miss a live show. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. Search podcasts wherever you get those PHLY Flyers. We will see you tomorrow for F Around Friday. My name is Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Stay loose and sexy, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.